It's Detroit. It's different. It's Detroit. It's different. Get the signal, it's clear. Nothing sounds like what.
Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. In 2026, I say it often that it's like this person should have been on here before, but we're getting a lot of guests that I think add to, as you all should have a great understanding, the culture of the city of Detroit because of the people here and their dynamic stories of what they do and how they connect and everything that goes into the layers. So I don't know if everybody kind of knows. Right now, this is the microphone that I am on most of the time. But before this microphone, I think most people knew me for jumping around, ranting, raving, and sometimes cussing and carrying a muck. Hip-hopping around, right? And also with my hip-hopping around, I would play with a lot of live players. And those live players, different backgrounds and different music. But if you know anything about a lot of that roots, if you grew up on East Coast hip-hop, jazz and hip-hop go hand in hand. And the man I got in studio today, when it comes to jazz and what it means and a lot of activism in it, and really building, I would say, a foundation for a lot of people to have access to a stage. This is what the man does. Bill Meyer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you, Kari, for having me on this program.
Yes, sir. So much to cover. Definitely into music, into organizing people, activism, and just, that art form of jazz. As they say, America's first art form, and hip-hop lines up somewhere in that mix as well.
That's my life. Music and activism, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we always start these in your family's roots to this area, Detroit. How did your family get here? How did you come here? What was the connection?
Okay, well, my parents were from Canada, from around Kitchener, Waterloo area.
Okay.
And they came here in the 30s during the Depression, actually. And my mother was pregnant with her first child, my older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived downtown Detroit. And she was a nurse and started working at Harper Hospital. And my dad worked on the ships. He was a cook, and he worked on the steamships on the Great Lakes.
Okay.
And I was living on the east side of town. I was born in 1944, and I was I was an afterthought. My brother and sister are way older than me.
Okay.
So my mother had a last child, and I was her baby, and I grew up in Gratiot, Mac and Gratiot area. And that's how I got here.
Okay, so a couple different things about that. So your family moves here during the Depression.
Yeah. Well, because my mother was pregnant, to be honest, and they came from a small village in Canada where this was not acceptable. They weren't married. So they came here, and she had the baby here. And I'm learning a lot of this later on in my life. I really didn't know that till years later. So she was a nurse and raising a kid by herself. My dad was not home at all. Yeah, it was very tough on my mother, but she raised me.
Yeah, so I'm definitely, I guess I'm unaware of, like, even up to that time, the way that that having a child, as they say, like really out of wedlock, where like just times could be looked at, depending upon where you stay, as where it's like, hey, we got to get to another place, and they get here, and it's during the Depression. So they come into America during probably some of the toughest times America has at its head.
Yeah. That's what it was, I guess. I'm trying to put all the pieces together later on in my life, but it's all gone. My parents passed a long time ago, and when I was 15, my mother passed.
Wow.
So it was, I lived with my brother and then my sister, that kind of thing.
Okay. So you spoke of Mac Gratiot. These are, if anybody kind of knows a lot about Detroit, these are like iconic streets and neighborhoods. What do you remember about the neighborhood coming up? What was the feel? What was the culture like?
Well, in my life, we lived on Elmwood. And I went to, what school was that over there? I can't remember the name of the school, but it was mostly a white neighborhood, of course. And my next door neighbor was an Italian kid. They had just come from Italy.
Wow.
So he ended up being my my best friend when I was a kid, and I didn't see any black people that I don't remember at all, other than the fact that I went to Sophie Wright Settlement at the time. My mother was very active with that group.
Okay.
And I think there were mixed people, races there, but I never thought about it at all. And I moved when I was 7 over to the west side of Detroit, to Schaefer and Fenkell area.
Okay. Another iconic neighborhood. I don't even know Sophie Wright Settlement, what that is. What's Sophie Wright Settlement?
Sophie Wright Settlement was a community service organization where they had classes and they put on musicals and plays and stuff like that, like a recreation center or something like that.
All right. At music, I know masterful player now. When are you introduced to playing?
Yeah, music. So as life went on, my brother, who's 14 years older than me, he was a piano player. And he studied piano. He was very successful, jazz musician. He studied classical too. And he ended up conducting the symphony, Rhapsody in Blue, once for his graduate thing at Wayne State. His life was music. And I was 14 years younger. I found out years later that my mother's father, my grandfather, was a church organist.
Wow.
And he had a band that went around and played at parties, which is exactly what I did for many years. And without knowing it, I followed their path.
Yeah.
But yet I was trying to be a doctor because my mother was a nurse, and I wanted to go to school to be a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, but I ended up being a musician.
Okay. When do you start taking to the keys? I know you said your brother played. Was it one of those things where it was there and your brother put you in classes, or was it just, let me pick this up?
I tell this story a lot about how I started playing. My mother and I were living on over on
the west side,
on LaSure Street.
Oh, okay.
Yes, on the west side. And my brother would practice every day and, and drive me crazy. I mean, it was like constantly. And I just, so the only way I could stop him was if I went and sat on the piano bench and stopped him from playing. And he got mad. He said, get off. I got to practice. Get off. I said, no. And I'd sit there and just try to do what he's doing and fool around with it. And he kept pushing him. My mother said, no, let Billy stay there. Let him play. So she encouraged me to play, even though he wanted the piano bench. So it was out of more or less defiance that I learned how to play the piano.
Wow.
Because I had to stop the sound in the house. So then he started teaching me stuff, and then I was inspired by him and started listening to music and reading music, and then music became my life, and it was very important to me.
Okay, so it's almost like the way you tell it, it's like little brother kind of annoying older brother in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then from that, you start getting a little bit better as he's teaching you. So you kind of learn how to play even before you learn to read or a lot of the other appreciation.
More or less, yeah. I was. He went off to the Army, and I was like maybe 10 or 7, 8, or 9, 10. And I had music books, so I got some like Dave Brubeck charts. Grinnell's used to sell all these great music books of jazz solos and Art Tatum and all these things, and I would study them because I learned how to read at that time. And when he got back from the Army and I played him some Dave Brubeck solos, and he was like blown away because he said, wow, he had nothing to do with teaching me that stuff. I learned it all on my own, and I didn't take jazz lessons or nothing.
Okay.
I took classical lessons for a couple of years from a woman that lived down the street, and I was sort of one of her unorthodox students who liked to play the piano with bare feet or improvise some things every now and then in the classical music, which she didn't like at all.
Wow.
So I got to like all kinds of music.
Okay, this is, and shout out to my guy Ian too, but this story's in some ways lining up, I don't know if you know Ian Finkelstein's, the start of him learning to play was through classical music into jazz as well. It sounds like you may have already kind of bucked that system. And this is like a earlier time for jazz. And Lord knows, I'm not Ken Burns or anybody like this as a jazz historian, but I will kind of lay this out for people to know. You can share even more of the history of this, but the beauty of a lot of jazz, especially when we think of like the start in New Orleans and so much of, Louis Armstrong and many of the other players in Conga Square and things like that, is the feel of the improvisation that would be inside of it that was so different than like a lot of the more classical pieces. And classical music definitely has a place and space too. But the feel to add the improv and like kind of get into something different, and really built a lot of the roots of like Louis Jordan, and I mean, I've got soul. This is a James Brown shirt, which
Yeah,
I think he's the root to lead to. I think Louis Jordan leads into James Brown and funk and so much other music, but it's not playing in that pocket. And you are in that space too. Are you like making these ties when you're younger? Like, when do you grow a love for jazz music?
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good question, but I am totally aware now of the roots of jazz in America. It's the black culture in New Orleans. It's the fertile ground for a combination of music from all around the world.
Very much so.
And rock and roll, improv, and all that stuff all started heavily down in New Orleans.
Yes.
And it's black music, and I make that quite clear when I perform and I do solos and all this, because a lot of times people don't understand where this whole thing came from.
Yeah.
Jazz is one of the few, I think I heard it was one of the only art forms that was developed in America.
Yeah, it's as in shout out to John Conyers, which we'll get to some stories about him later, but it is established as America's first art form through Congressman Conyers, who was an avid jazz fan.
I love Conyers.
Rest in peace.
He was a great guy.
Yep.
So when I probably didn't put all this stuff together till I got to college.
Much older, okay.
Yeah, I played jazz when I was a kid, but I didn't know the politics. I didn't know the race issues or nothing like that. I just played music, and most of my my influences were from the white community, and Dave Brubeck and Peter Nero and whatever else. But I listened to jazz, and certainly Charlie Mingus and Monk and all those things, but I really didn't get into the real understanding of jazz till I got to college, and that's when I actually changed my life in college. My mother passed when I was 15, and then I was on my own, and I went to college and started searching for life and the meaning of life and all that by myself at college. And this was a radical time in history in the 60s, when there was a war in Vietnam, and people were very fervent about stopping the war, and I got very active and radicalized there about war and about music. There was the artist workshop down there. There was avant-garde music, and I wanted to go to the extreme to understand everything. So I got into pretty much the kind of music that most white people in the white community really weren't interested in. I got into Cecil Taylor and all sorts of any kind of music that was exciting and fresh and new to me. It was all fresh. And my brother did love Art Tatum, and that was and he introduced me to Art Tatum when I was young. So Art Tatum was always a hero of mine. I could never play like him, and I mean, I now just emulate him when I play, but I can only touch a fraction of Art Tatum. So my brother knew a lot of black artists. He worked with Kenny Burrell and other people, Montgomery and Wes Montgomery. And when he was young, he played jazz. So I got that influence from him. But I didn't really put the whole story together till later on, after college for sure, during college, and got active in a lot of things, and started seeing the politics of music and how the whole thing developed, and how black music was stolen a lot of times from them, and the white folks made all the money, and the blacks created the stuff. It's been the history of black artistry for a long time. So I consider that unjust, and I became a very avid peace and justice activist when I was in college.
Okay.
And I wandered all around the political arena in college, and there were all sorts of leftist groups, and the Communist Party, Socialist Party, Workers' World Party. There were everybody trying to stop the war. And I got really interested and involved in all of them, and tried to figure out what the answer was to bring peace and justice to the world and fight racism, because there was an incident when I was young, when I lived on the east side of town. No, when I had just moved to the west side of town on the shore. It was all white neighborhood back at that time. I went to Cooley High School. And it was probably 1955 or something like that. I was maybe 11 or 12. And I heard some of my friends say, hey, there's a disturbance going on somewhere, and you got to go see it. So I got on my bicycle, and I rode about a mile across Hubble, and there was Marlowe Street, and I can almost picture exactly what happened. There was like hundreds of people standing around this house on the corner with the fence around the house on the corner on Marlowe and Keeler, I think it was. And And I said, "So what's going on? What's the big deal?" And they said, "Look it." And then a guy walks out of the house, and it's a black person.
Wow.
And they go, and these people start yelling at him and throwing stuff at him. I go,
Wow.
"What the heck is this?" I didn't understand that because I knew nothing about racism at all. My parents were from Canada. Somehow I felt that there was no racism in Canada or whatever like that. And this shocked me, and it made a deep impression on me that people could not like somebody because of whatever reason, ethnicity, or color. So that played a big role in my life. And when I got into music and all that, I heard some racism within the music world. I tried to fight that and overcome that. And so I became an activist for peace and justice around anti-racist struggles and against war, stuff like that. And I started seeing how can this be applied to what I have skills for in music. And I'm a musician, and who's the artists that are fighting for this kind of stuff. And I started to learn all the great musicians who really did contribute their artistry towards changing society for the better. And I mean, it's amazing how many great artists there were in the past that were concerned about those issues, especially black artists who were concerned about racism.
Yeah.
But there were white artists, too, who also fought that.
Yes.
And Dave Brubeck, for example, I found out years later, did a musical called The Real Ambassador, which is all about how black musicians were used by the State Department to go to Europe to give the impression that everything's wonderful in America, and then they'd come home and have to face segregation and stuff. Louis Armstrong was one of them, for sure.
Certainly.
Yeah, so that kind of history. So I started being attracted to musicians who had social conscience and the concern about changing society. So that's pretty much how I got into music. So it's not that I like jazz any more than anything else. I like all kinds of music, just like I want to like all kinds of people, all kinds of religions. I don't want to discriminate at all about anything. I never was inspired to do that by my parents. I never got any of that from my parents. And I think a lot of people get this racism from their parents and or their family somehow or another. So luckily, I wasn't touched by that.
Yeah.
And that's my relationship to jazz was that, of course I played jazz, but I played rock and roll first. I played when I was studying at home and keeping my brother off the piano bench, I was learning pop tunes, Fats Domino songs and all those things. And then I'd try to get some guys together and play some rock and roll for dance parties and in high school or whatever, or grade school.
Okay.
No, all kinds of music. But it was years later I found out that the music that I liked the best in those years happened to all come from New Orleans. And it was the New Orleans beat that I really loved a lot, and Fats Domino and then later Chuck Berry and Little Richard and all those guys, they all really inspired me. And so I never was a purist about any style of music, that jazz is the greatest thing in the world and everything else is suck, but it all has value to me, and I see how it fits in the social scale and how it's used in society to.
Well, you definitely in sharing that, it opens up so many different points of like it's the roots depending upon where things go, because technically, as they say, like if jazz is America's first art form, the blues, which has a lot of ties to obviously a lot of the black gospel and as they'll say, like Negro spirituals, like it's all kind of like in this pot together, depending upon the arm. So like as you mentioned, like the Fats Domino and Little Richard isn't from New Orleans, but him and Chuck Berry, as they go to New Orleans and are playing with these musicians, it has an impact on how their music feels. Even if anybody studies Louis Armstrong, like his music. Like the arcs of like following his stuff through time, you can tell it's like, oh, he's like when he's like with more of these New Orleans musicians, because a lot of those New Orleans musicians, as we kind of just know the history of New Orleans, what it is, and the connection to the African people there, the people, the different, the people of France, Spain, and just definitely the connection to hoodoo culture and all of this. It's like a lot's going on in New Orleans during some of what's happening even to this day, but definitely around what's happening with music and jazz, and even like Sunday being the day that a lot of people that were enslaved would have in Congolese Square and other places of not being a day that they were tortured with the work of the enslavement work. And this was the time a lot of the music would come in celebration, but clearly like that music in celebration also had other messages and narratives in it. So similar to, as you say, like a lot of what would be activism in that music of the 60s, anti-war, like even leading up to that, some of these songs that we're thinking are just like, oh, we're partying and we're dancing to, for a long time had a whole lot of other incepted messages that are talking to a lot of people throughout the nation, especially Black folks connected to this culture, about like where to go, how to move, and what to look for, and how to find value. Like classic, like in blues, Mannish Boy, and what Muddy Waters is saying, like the gypsy woman told my mama, and all of this stuff. Like these things and these messages are like entrenched in a lot of this music. Now you speak to the 60s, and you touched on a couple different things I do want to go back to and definitely get more perspective on too. But the other part of the 60s is a lot of these rock and roll musicians in the 60s and 70s. So like, whether that be, definitely Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, even like, like the Door, like the roots of a lot of that rock and roll music, what they love is a lot of this blues and jazz. And I mean, like, Keith Richards, like almost like love for a lot of this blues and jazz has so many impacts on like how the rock and rolls, how the Rolling Stones music even sounds like around that time and stuff. So like it's all kind of interconnected. Don Watts talks about this stuff often too, if you all ever get a chance to run across him. But you're in the mix, like kind of making these ties. So you're saying like it's not necessarily a music, but it's more so like the message and the feel. Did you even at that time even kind of make some of those ties that like, okay, I can tell that, some of this stuff that Hendrix is doing is heavily connected to this other music? Like, did you hear that, or was that even like a connection, man?
Yeah, well, I think I started thinking that way when I went to college in 62. I started that way. And certainly New Orleans became a big influence in my life, and it's a melting pot of all sorts of different cultures. And I think that I started learning the influence it had on all the other music styles.
Yeah.
And how everything influenced each other. But quite often it was the Black community that was leading the way.
Okay.
And like the Beatles and Rolling Stones, they all were influenced, but everybody was influenced. Elvis Presley, he got away with it and made all the money. And
Big Mama Thornton.
Many people did that. But no, I think New Orleans became more and more prominent in my life. And actually later on in my life, I thought of moving down there. And we used to stay there 1 or 2 months a year just to get into the culture for several years. And then I ended up working with a Louis Armstrong band, I toured for 10, 15 years with Marcus Belgrave, and we went all over the country playing New Orleans stuff. And my father actually, when I did see my father, he would come home like once or twice a year. He was on a ship.
You said he worked on ships, so that definitely.
And he played accordion also. He played accordion, and so my father's side was music, and my mother's father was a musician. So I got music from both sides, although neither one used it as a profession. They both were musicians. He had a collection of what he called Dixieland music at the time, like a gigantic record collection of Dixieland, Dukes of Dixieland and the Firehouse Five and Louis Armstrong and all this stuff. So I was introduced to that when I was a kid. When I was 7 to 10 years old, I was hearing that music. And my dad loved it. And even though I saw him once a year or twice a year, I was influenced because that's my dad's music. So I really got into that. And I started studying that style when I was a kid. So later on, when I had a chance to actually play it and work with other musicians who know that stuff, it was natural to me, and it's my roots.
Okay.
And that's very heavy from New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. And you also talk. What college did you go to?
I went to Wayne State.
Okay. Was that a decision, especially when I'm thinking about just the grief of losing a mother and a father? If he's a sailor, that as you say, I mean, if anybody knows sailors, most their life, especially back then, and even sort of kind of today, you're living on ships docking in and out.
Yep.
You're not.
That's right.
It's not the life that you really can really have almost anybody else in your life that ain't on that ship.
You're right. So I didn't have parents
Mm-hmm.
that I could count on.
Yeah.
My mom passed. So,
And then
so
you
yeah, it was
said,
my sister. I lived with my sister, and their family were very nurturing, very
Okay.
helpful, and they lived in Madison Heights, and they
Okay.
helped me get through high school. I graduated from Madison High School,
Hmm.
and then I went to Wayne, and when I went there, it was like another world. I was on my own and had the choice of whatever I wanted to do, and
Mhm.
I was going to go in pre-med. I was studying to be a doctor.
Mhm.
And I got several years into it until I got a D in organic chemistry. And I said, screw it, I'm out of here. I can't do medicine. So I went back to my staple of playing music and went into music department,
Mhm.
got a degree eventually and started working at Wayne. And I worked at Wayne for like 30, 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And retired from Wayne State.
Wow. Okay. Now you also mentioned anti-war movement. So it's 1962. Just I'm a fan of history as it be, but you know, 62 is leading into a lot of I think often how America, and I'm speaking more so from like like what I'd say, like traditional media and a lot of the historians that are given more national access, the way that the story of Vietnam is told is definitely not along the lines, at least how I have an understanding of Vietnam from looking at a lot of the history as things go. Vietnam, like a lot of wars, and it's really even the conflicts of today, so much dealing on a lot of colonization and Western civilizations and nations looking to control assets of nations not connected. So Vietnam is a territory that is colonized by the French for a long time. And then you have a lot of people, especially like from southern Vietnam, many other generals. I think Ho Chi Minh is spoke of more prominently as far as like looking to organize for the justice of the people that are not given what's fair. This conflict, and this is during, like, I guess, like, as they say, like a Cold War world, meaning you have communist states versus these capitalist states. And these Cold War conflicts are like, America saying, hey, I support these guys. And in default, like Russia saying, well, we support these guys and we'll have them fight each other and we won't be there. And a lot of these conflicts, even that exist today, like when we look at Afghanistan, when we look at, in a lot of ways, even a lot of stuff that's happening in Venezuela, it's very played out. Now, this comes to a head so much for America because America steps in transitions in this role of where the French are. Maybe the best movie depiction of this is if anybody's ever seen the movie Apocalypse Now, where it's like some scenes in that where you're going to see these French soldiers talking about what's happening and how and what America should do. And it's interesting. It's interesting. Now, with that, there's an anti-war movement that begins to really take a hold for like probably the first time. And that's during this era, the 60s, especially after the JFK assassination. And you have a Lyndon Baines Johnson as the president of the United States. And all of this is happening and it's growing and it's also meshing with a lot of movements is like, they say like what we would say woke. So that's a short Kari synopsis of a lot of this happening, but you're into a lot of what the anti-war movement really moves into like, human rights movements amongst many people. What was that like if you're going to college at this time and also just being the age? I mean, there's an active draft, so I'm sure you're knowing friends, people are being drafted into the military. The story that even Charlie Beckham told about, like, right now, what's that, Fort Wayne. It's like, people would be like, oh man, you just got to get a physical. And then it's like, you ain't get a physical, got shipped to Fort Wayne, and then you're in Vietnam possibly, a couple months later. And you're, I'm guessing, still kind of like in this window where that possibly could happen to you. When does the transitioning to activism for this anti-war movement begin for you? And I know that's a long Kari Frazier question, but I also want to add this other classic point that the Korean conflict is before that, but even leading up to that, like my grandfather and many others were told, like, being a soldier and fighting for your country was just always accepted, especially in the hearts and minds of a lot of American young men for most of their life, up until the anti-war movement kind of takes hold in Vietnam.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything you said about the history of that. And certainly we were influenced by all the assassinations going on in the world, Lumumba being one of the first ones.
Yes.
And discovering there were many more before that. And there was during the World War II and going back in history before that, this whole thing started back with the Soviet Union when it became a socialist country. And in our country became the strongest, most powerful anti-socialist, anti-communist country. So we started the Cold War probably back then, if you want to say that's when it happened. Right after the Soviet Union was formed, many countries went in there to try to overthrow the system. And that's where the Cold War began, when they lost that attempt, and the Soviet Union developed for many years. And the West spent the rest of the time fighting communism and fighting something that they considered opposite of what we believed.
And also, I want to add something else where it's like I'm sounding like an Oliver Stone documentary right here, but I think also a lot of Americans don't recognize even the whole concept that right now is seen as, which is debatable and definitely tragic and wrong for any way, but like the wave of Nazism and the Third Reich being the most evil group of people to ever exist that's like often propagated. Hitler and Germany lose World War II directly because of Russia. And I think sometimes, especially like with like Band of Brothers and a lot of these American movies, and I'm not necessarily saying that what happened on D-Day and definitely the loss of lives. I mean, my grandfather lost a leg in World War II, that American soldiers didn't play an active role in that. But Russia and what Russia did with the Nazi regime, especially in that territory of Russia, has a whole lot to do with why really the whole, I guess, like a lot history would be different if Russia didn't exist. And that's also another thing that makes this Cold War so confusing, because it's like, just 2 minutes ago, we were, you know what I'm saying? You all needed us and we were cool. And then I walk out the room and now it's like, hey.
The whole world would be different now if the Soviet Union didn't stop the Nazis.
Yes.
And Nazis were just extreme anti-communists. And when they lost the war, many of the Nazis were brought to safety into the U.S.
Into the United States, yes.
This sort of negative, dark history of America is what a lot of people in America can't accept, can't understand, don't want to learn about, and don't want to know.
True.
I was the kind of person that wanted to know the truth, the facts about anything, whether it hit my home or not. And I've learned over the years that our country, our government, not our people necessarily, our government style, capitalist system was determined to overthrow other governments and take over power and run the world. I mean, that's illegal. That's not international law that you can allow that happen. And our country developed an empire that just had to run the world. And to do that, you have to kill people. And lots of wars were started. I mean, we try to always make it look like the other people start the wars, but if you look back in history, and the more I learned collecting facts, U.S. was a very aggressive country, is a very aggressive country. I mean, you can see it now more than ever. But
well, you're definitely
yeah.
that's one thing the Trump administration has, I think, crystallized for many Americans that
Right. You don't see it until the country's being threatened. And I mean, back in the 30s when there was a threat, with the Depression and the left movement was growing very strong, there was a threat and they had to cut down. And the blacklisting of the Cold War really hit the music industry and the film industry. And but when there's no threat, we're the most democratic country in the world, supposedly. But soon as we get challenged, the fists go up and we start becoming quite fascist.
And I'm saying, like, at that time, still, like, in the early 60s, this is, I mean, right now it still can be seen very radicalized. But then it definitely, as I'm assuming, just like what was so pervasive for so many, like, how is that received? How do you even get into these circles during this time where, like, just a lot of I really think, like, maybe till like 1975, if you're a man born in America, the thought process is eventually I'm going to end up being a soldier on behalf of this country.
Yeah, it was a tough time, but it was very fertile for me and woke me up. And I developed along that leftist line the rest of my life and started trying to address other kinds of issues like with the blockade around Cuba, which did tie me in with the music and politics because the Cuban music is very powerful and very
much so.
influential. And I've been to Cuba a few times, studied the country and met a lot of people there. And I'm opposed to the blockade around Cuba, which is the longest standing blockade in history. And people keep saying, that country's socialism is bad because look at Cuba. Well, look at Cuba's been strangled for the last 80 years. So, I mean, what do you expect them to do? Take the strangulation off and let them try. And then if it doesn't work, then the system doesn't work. But you can't evaluate a system when you're being sanctioned and tariffed and choked to death. And that's what happened recently in Venezuela. But that's politics. We're talking about music. But they do tie together very closely. And there were many orchestras, many musicians who supported Cuba, and I respected them. And like Charlie Hayden, for example, had a liberation orchestra. I don't know if you knew that, but he went to Cuba and performed. And a lot of artists I respect that went to these countries to defend their system, that to allow another country to choose their system and be what's the word? Sovereign countries that they decide their own fate and future, rather than being forced on it by Western imperialism.
So I guess really the question, as I say, as you move more into, for lack of a better term, better understandings of what you see as justice in a lot of these movements, what impact does that have on like the people around you, your friends, family? What's the perspective of all of this?
Yes. Well, politics tends to divide people. It's unfortunate. And in my later years in life here, I've realized that there's different levels of relating to people. I mean, why relate politically if you have such strong differences and you're going to hate each other? That's not worth it. Let's try to be human beings and like each other on a social, personal level first. And then if you have political differences, you can work it out as friends. So I don't push politics at all. Anybody, I'd prefer to be a friend with someone and then talk fairly about differences in politics. Because the world is filled with people who think differently. And I think the whole trick in life is to learn how to live with people who think different than you.
Okay.
And find a way to live together and find common ground, common interests. We all need safety. We all need security, a job, fun, life, whatever. There's things that we all need. And why not allow each other to have that? Why prevent some country from not having by bombing them or whatever it is? That kind of stuff. So to me, it's more of a personal level now that I'd rather just, politics is very important. And what you see going on in the world is very, very scary. In many, the U.S. empire is on on steroids right now. It's like every Greenland, Venezuela, Iran, just everywhere. And it's not good for American people at all. Our economy is going to suffer from all this stuff. And anyways, I don't want to get into personal politics. I really don't have much faith in either the Democrat or the Republican Party.
I got you. So,
that's it.
but I'm just saying, like, so even as you're learning, your thought process was like, just build stronger bonds with who people are and where they're at. And then from there, you can connect better. So, and now I guess, as I even think more so about music, even, a lot of like our connection definitely goes, like, I know for many people's connection. You run one of the longest running open mics with the like world-renowned jazz artists for so long at Bert's Warehouse. And shout out to Bert and what they've done for so long too. But now I know you've traveled on. But how do you even begin this jam session that lasts so long? When does it start and how?
All right. Well, that's an interesting story. I didn't want to forget saying that there's many influences in my life, and one of the most powerful one was Paul Robeson. I learned about him in college for a few years, and what an amazing person he was.
Very much so.
I mean, one of the greatest people in the world.
Yes.
And I started producing shows back then, and one of my first shows I produced was the Detroit tribute to Paul Robeson and his work for peace.
Okay.
And it involved, I mean, it wasn't only my idea. I was asked to do this by the U.S. Peace Council, which I'm now a member of years later. But that group had a convention here, and they asked me, because they saw me playing at anti-war rallies and all this, could you put together a musical thing for this convention?
Okay.
National convention. So someone suggested Paul Robeson. I studied him. Oh my God, this guy's amazing. And then so we did a show and interviewed lots of people that knew Robeson when he came to town here, like Irma Henderson, and George Crockett, and John Conyers. I got to interview all these people. I got to know them well, and they're in the show. They were in the program. We filmed them and put them on the screens while the orchestra was playing, and the chorus was singing, and there was a narrator. It was a multimedia presentation. The whole history of Detroit's relationship to Paul Robeson. Yeah.
So did when was this show?
That was in '87.
Okay. Yeah. And let me add this as I share, like what my godmother would even share. But so I always uplift this kind of like, so when I say that a lot of the cabinet of then Mayor Coleman Young and some of these relationships with like a Conrad Mallett Sr. or Irma Henderson, like these relationships existed like way back with things like that, and like organizing, especially to bring Paul Robeson to Detroit. A lot of those Miller High graduates, and you got this program with like they came together around activism like this. So like Annie Peck and you know you spoke to a lot, John Conyers, like these people, like the relationships they had like in the 70s, like they were already kind of connected around a lot of stuff. And that's also the brilliance of someone like Paul Robeson, one of the, as even in college football, like excellent athlete, excellent singer, excellent actor, to the point like he's in Russia, learns Russian and
he knew 27 languages. Dude. Unbelievable.
Yeah, like you can't even think, like he has like probably one of the few people with statues like in more countries across the world than anybody.
He was a lawyer. He was an actor, a singer. We all know that. And so many things he did. But I have an interview with Coleman Young on YouTube talking about Paul Robeson.
Yeah.
And it's the most animated interview. Coleman is at his top performance. He loved Robeson. And I never saw our mayor in a better mood than that interview.
Yeah.
And he was his bodyguard when Robeson came to town.
Yes.
And Irma Anderson had stories about how she had him stay in her house and her bed was too short and his legs would go over the end. Just amazing stories.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to know all the people. Charles Wright was in on this whole project.
Wow.
Because he wrote a book about Robeson.
Now that I did not know till you
he wrote a book, and it was him that we started this project with. And so we did it, performed it twice, once at Wayne University for the Peace Council, and then we did it again at Rackham Building for the African American Museum. And that was a very inspirational project in my life. And I went on from there to do many projects, music projects. And most of them were like homeless concert. Barbara Dane, who was another very progressive activist, I did a concert with her, and I got involved in putting music together with politics and a message.
Yeah, I also know, and rest in peace. She's another, like, as I call him, one of my big homies, kind of one of your big homies, but you kind of one of my big homies too. But Judge Claudia Morcom did a lot of organizing with the Cuban Nine, and I know you did. You helped with a lot of what she did with them as well.
We worked together a lot. She was actually the narrator for our production of The Real Ambassadors, which was Dave Brubeck's musical that he wrote about. I told you earlier about Paul Robeson and about Louis Armstrong going to Europe and all other black artists. We performed it here at the Detroit Jazz Festival the first time in 50 years after it was done in Monterey Jazz Festival.
Wow.
And Claudia was the narrator on that. And there's a video of that too, I think. I'm not sure if it's online or not. But that was the only musical that they have ever been done at the Detroit Jazz Festival.
Wow.
It was a great experience too. So I'm interested in how music and politics works together. So now you asked me about the jam session.
Yeah.
So I lived in the suburbs for 30 years or more and worked in the dance band, and I left jazz. Jazz wasn't making any money, but it wasn't that. It was that more opportunities opened up when I started working with a dance band, a very famous society band, and I ended up working for many big artists, Natalie Cole, and just on and on.
Okay.
But I just missed working with Elvis Presley. Actually, I was out of town, so I couldn't work with that show with him. But that kind of stuff, and all the Motown groups I worked backing them back then. But what happened was that this years of playing in the suburbs and playing in the Jewish community, mostly, we played like 10 jobs a week of parties. It was like just crazy for a long
10 jobs a week. Yeah, that's a lot.
Long time for 40 years or more. It was just unbelievable.
Okay.
And it was Bill Meyer group, and it was dance band stuff.
Yep.
I eventually gave up on that. I wanted to move back to Detroit and get back in the scene, and because it was awful dry and white out there. And so my wife and I decided to move back, and we ended up in Hamtramck because we wanted to be where there was a lot of diversity. And
wait, even to this day, Hamtramck may be one of the most diverse places.
Oh, it's
definitely in America.
A playground for me. I love Hamtramck.
Yeah, it's like that. It's one place in America where you can probably get some Bengalis,
Yemeni, Bangladeshi,
shirt,
Bosnian,
so get a Polish punchki and some fried chicken, and
So we moved back to Detroit, and I sort of backed out of the jobbing scene, and instantly my friend and longtime comrade. Cohort, Hubie Crawford, a bass player, probably one of the greatest in the city. I worked with him and he was my closest friend for like 40 years.
Okay.
He was working with Dee McNeil at a club, and they needed a sub. I subbed, and she liked me, and then she moved to Bert's, and then found out that she needed a piano player regularly for jam sessions. So I lived in Hamtramck. Bert's was like 5 minutes away. I said, man, that's perfect. So I just moved back to Detroit. Got invited. She had a jam for about a year, and it didn't last because for various reasons. And she moved out of town, went back to California, and the band ended up taking over. So at the time, it was Spider Webb and Hubie Crawford and I.
Okay.
And we decided to take it over. Bert let us run it, and so we put in different hosts in, and then we started turning it. So the reason I wanted to work there is for political reasons also, because I want to support black business and try to bring fairness to the people who live in Detroit. I mean, the city was primarily black, and it was all, the money was all in the white community, but it fled and all that sort of stuff. Anyways, when I came back, I wanted to work in the black community. So I didn't go for the Dirty Dog or the Cliff Bells or any of those places. And so I luckily got a call to play at Bert's, which is probably one of the most inside clubs in the black community. It's a mecca of culture, I think.
Yeah.
So we worked there for 24 years, and I loved it because I kept wanting to bring people together. And I started bringing my friends who had previously wouldn't want to cross 8 Mile Road. They started coming down, and we started. It was a project, a political project for me too, to help unify and deal with that. So
And
that's why I was there.
and I also want to uplift this just for anybody that's ever like so many people like, oh, Kari used to, because that's really kind of where we've crossed paths. It's in the music. Even though I do remember I first met you. Oh man, this is so long ago. So shout out to the Allied Media Project back when it wasn't even really the Allied Media Project.
Right.
And they were doing a lot of at the time anti-George W. Bush activism. And it was a concert. And they were like, Bill gonna be there. And I'm like, Bill? And they're like, yeah, he from Hamtramck. He had all of this stuff. So I do remember that was like the first time. And then afterwards, just seeing you with Bert. So if anybody that's ever done music, it's like you got music, as they always say, it's like you got music and then you got music business. Music, amazing. Just the relationships that can be built. The business part of it is not so amazing. But just to keep everything afloat and keep a spot running. And when I think about over those 24 years, the amount of legends that have touched that stage, but also it's not just legends, it's sometimes just, people that would stand up and say, look, my brother played most of his life. I kind of played with him, but I just want to come up here and play my horn. Like, it's not many places where something like that would carry on for so long.
Yeah, well, it's still going on. And unfortunately, last year, there was a falling out with Bert, decided to add a covered charge, and we couldn't afford to do it. And it didn't work out, so we were forced to have to go some other place. We went to Caju Cafe, and we're there now on Thursday nights.
And Caju Cafe, great food, another cool spot, another very, if you all haven't been there, certainly music feel. Thornetta does that at least, I know, once a year, and we love Thornetta.
Yeah, we're having fun there. It's going very good, but I don't know. I'm getting old, and I don't know how long I want to do this, and my political project is over. I mean,
I got you.
Caju's a white club, rock and roll, a lot of rock and roll, and I mean, I love it, and I have no problem with white people, but it's
a different feel.
That's not my role in life. It's
okay.
They need help. I mean, I have to work in the white community and try to bring an understanding there so that we all live in this earth together, and let's try to find a way to not shit on each other. I mean, so.
But I just really want to say, even, time, everything, one of my favorite George Benson songs, Everything Must Change. But 24 years, it's not many, stages that last 2-4 years. You know what I'm saying?
No. And, we thought, I figured this out, that in all that time, and we've easily had at least 2 or 3 new people come in each week to play. And we played over 1,000 nights, I think it was, something like that. And I mean, we've met thousands of musicians and singers that went through our stuff, and many of them kept coming and coming and going.
Yeah.
It was such an experience. I mean, it still is going on.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's going to go, but Butter Hawkins is playing drums, and Ibrahim Jones, 2 great musicians, are joining me, and then Dwight Adams comes by quite regularly, and
Ralph Armstrong would be there.
Ralph Stubbs with us quite often. So I mean, the music's still there. We're trying to keep it going. But I'm probably my wife passed away a few years ago, and we were married for 56 years, and she felt the same way as I did, and we both worked and understood politics and music that way, and I missed her, so I miss her desperately.
I can only imagine. I didn't even know that, and condolences on that. Man.
So but I'm very fortunate to have found a new partner that that both of us knew for many years, and she's just changing my life and making life so beautiful that I don't really want to do much else except be with her.
Hey, man, hey.
I mean, I'm in the best place in my life right now. I'm so happy, and I would love to share this happiness with everybody I know, especially people I love, that I wish them the best to be happy.
Okay. And with all this playing, and just in that perspective, what would you say as far as when you think about the music alone, and those experiences? Like, if you had to, when you meet the younger musicians today and them looking to engage in this, what's the advice that you give to a lot of the younger musicians?
Well, first of all, I never considered myself a mentor. I never chose to be a teacher. Somehow that never fit in my psyche.
Yep.
Because I learned on my own.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I had a classical teacher.
Yep.
But I keep telling young people, I mean, there's so much out there to learn from. You can learn on your own very easily, especially now. I mean, with the internet and all the other stuff, God, it's like lessons everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you still need a personal touch with a teacher and all that, but I'm pretty much down on formal education. And even though I worked at the university for many years, I see what it is. It's pretty much a corporate shill game a lot of times, and students, young people are enthralled and excited to be involved in the program. They go through this, pay lots of money, they get out, and at the end, they have no jobs, no work for them. They're cranking out jazz musicians in a country where jazz is not increasing anywhere, I don't think, and it's going to get tougher and tougher for work.
Yep.
And but there's many, many great young musicians playing, and one of them that I work with a lot is a young man named Nate Topo.
Okay.
And he was one of the kids that came to our jam session. Many young players came there, Alan Denard, and I mean, just on and on. And Nate was one of them that really sprung forth and became ambitious and starting a band and recordings and all that stuff. And he invited me to play in his band, and and he had Galen and Ralph and I play for him.
Wow!
Because he called it his mentors in him or something like that, and the respect he showed to us was very well appreciated. So I work with him a lot.
Okay.
And I think that the message I have is to a lot of young people is don't think going to college is going to answer your questions.
Okay.
I mean, there are certain professions you have to have a degree to get a job. But you don't need a degree to be a great musician, first of all. So don't go to college if you're going to be a musician. You don't need a degree. You need the knowledge, yes. And where are you going to get the knowledge from? Do you have the money at this time? It's very tight. Money is tight for a lot of people. Think it over twice. Is this going to help you to have a degree? Or can you learn a different way? And knowing I worked at the university, I know how it works. And I know how money is a big factor in getting students' tuition money and all that. That's a very important thing. And there's great teachers and all. They're very dedicated teachers, but I got turned off by formal education. And so what I tell students now is, or young people, not my students.
Yeah, I'm just more so saying
I tell young people, just open your mind up, first of all. Don't think jazz is the only thing in the world. There's all kinds of music. There's ethnic music from every country in the world has music. Why is that any less valid? There's Asian music. There's Latin music. There's Greek music. Everything. This is all music. Music is beautiful. It's not just one kind of music you should enjoy. You can enjoy all kinds. And so I encourage musicians to open up and play and mix this. And I love to mix styles. And put two different styles together, two different ethnic music or rhythms or whatever. Just create in that way. That's the way I approach life. Keep your mind open and create.
Okay.
But I think more than that, I just ran across a video on YouTube yesterday that just blew my mind. I was looking up Eric Dolphy, for example. For some reason, his name came up in something I got. He was a great saxophonist, bass clarinetist. He was the best, and he was sort of ignored compared to other famous jazz musicians over the years. And I saw a little short video why he was and all that. And he had a terrible death, and he died young, and just stuff like these stories, these great musicians are forgotten. So I got studying him, and then all of a sudden I found this video with him playing with Leonard Bernstein and the New York Philharmonic Orchestra.
Wow.
And it's from a concert in the 50s, and it's kinescope. It's like black and white, and it's like looking into the past, like I never expected I'd ever be able to do that. Don Ellis was a trumpet player. The bass player was Richard Davis. I mean, all these great jazz musicians when they were young kids playing with the symphony orchestra, and Bernstein was one of the best conductors and leaders of an orchestra. And Aaron Copland was on the show, and all this stuff. And all this history is available now. I could have never seen this in my life till now. People upload these videos from back then. I love film. That's my other interest, and I studied film and wrote about film and all that.
I know you've done a lot of you've hosted a lot of screenings even at your home.
Yes,
Of a lot
mostly
of
political,
documentaries and a lot of
progressive
things.
music, yeah. And, one of my favorite films is Mandla, The Revolution in 4 parts. It shows the power of music in social change and revolution, and in South Africa especially. And, there's a lot of films that show how powerful music can be to change the world. So that's my focus. I try to encourage young people to give an extra purpose to music other than just please yourself and sounds good and looks good and make money on it. Let's try to make it change society to the better if it's possible. That's another element that you got to add.
I definitely know when I was definitely out here rapping and bouncing around, and I had a lot of things that certainly had more of a what would I say? It definitely covered some social topics that I don't think a lot of rappers were covering, but you would I remember I probably it would be hard to go at least, I don't know, 2-3 months without you saying, "Hey, I want you to come here. I want you to come here. I want you to come here." So definitely, and I didn't necessarily see those connections like you saw it, but it was cool to perform in places and spaces where I probably usually may be one of the first people to introduce these folks to hip hop, especially the way that I would do it.
Yeah, that's the idea, introducing people to different things. Open your mind up, learn about some Americans tend to just stick in America, think about us, and then that's why politics is so bad, because they really don't hear the other side at all, ever. Our corporate media is so controlling to give us one side of the story that most people don't want to know the other side because this is all they've ever learned. And this is propaganda, and, every country has propaganda, but don't listen to only one propaganda because there's many different points of view, many different kinds of music, many different ways to look for the positive.
And now, I guess, in that same thing as you said, what you would say to the younger musician, but you and your music journey, where you've released a lot of different styles of music with many different artists and everything. What's your when you create now? What are you when you walk into writing or playing? What's the style? What's the focus? What's your vision?
Well, my writing days are thinning out. I did one of the last big pieces was a piece called The Home Suite, which was about all immigrants coming to Hamtramck, and I interviewed 20 immigrants and told their story, and then wrote music in much ethnic style as I could to reflect the people in Hamtramck. That was one of my last projects as far as big. Mostly I'm playing everywhere and doing everything that I can to help promote a progressive agenda. Tomorrow, I actually just rehearsed before here for a Martin Luther King rally over at the church St. Matthew's on Woodridge. And these are very active people that have put this together for many years at this church. It's probably one of the most active progressive honorings of Martin Luther King Day. And playing with a young girl, the singer who from high school, we're doing a song from it's called Stand Up, which I had never done before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's from the Harriet Tubman film.
Yes, the Harriet Tubman.
And that is like I think that is one of the selections that's often made when people sing any offering of like movement or change music that people speak to now.
And we're doing that, Lift Your Voice, and a bunch of songs. So I'm still playing music with meaning.
Okay.
Music with a message, with a meaning. I mean, that's the most important to me. But I also love just playing music. I mean, music's beautiful. But if it can have a message or a meaning or a purpose, not only the music itself, but where you play and who you're playing for and how much you charge people and all, every element of music is all part of
the
politics.
Whole space. Yeah.
And if you have an important goal in life to try to help change the world to the better, and I mean, I'll face it, I've been in a lucky position in my life. I'm a white male in America. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So if I can't make it, what the hell, So instead of being selfish and doing it all for me, I think luckily I learned early on that my life will be better if everybody else's life gets better.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to make sure everyone has equal opportunity, equal rights, fairness, no war, no injustice, that sort of stuff, and a chance, and try to eliminate hate and all the negative stuff of life and work for the positive.
Okay.
By using music if possible, yes.
Okay. Well, with that, we're at a close, and thank you so much for this story. And this is definitely an interview. I've appreciated some of the perspective, and also like the time. You all know, like sometimes I'm talking more in the interview, but you got me to kind of like brush up on a little bit of my geopolitics of American history leading into the Cold War conflict.
Kari, I'm so impressed with you and what you've done. I know we haven't worked together in a long time, but I did hear when you started this Detroit is Different, and you sent it to me right away when you first started.
Yeah.
And I was very happy and excited for you because I know what you want to do. Same thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you have you're full of energy. And you have talent. I wish you'd get out there and use some of that again, singing and rapping, because you're good at that. But I've always enjoyed knowing you and working with you, and I'm honored you called me to this event.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot of, as I'm like you, I don't necessarily consider myself a mentor, and I rarely use that. Definitely my godmothers, which you, which definitely worked
we
with
share
you.
love
and
for
that's,
Joanne Watson. Oh my goodness.
Joanne Watson and Orthea Barnes, which I want to say, and that's really one of my favorite memories of Mama Barnes was when she told you, she was like, "I'm gonna do it for 2 nights," and I've never seen it as packed as when she did, you guys, the last time. And she was like, "I told Bert he gonna run out of Hennessy messing with me."
Yes,
Orthea, just full of joy. But you know, and still here, like it's a lot of as I say, it's like I've had a lot of big homies in navigating spaces and places. You've definitely been one, especially with interacting with musicians, because I'm just sharing. These are Kari opinions too. Like music, as much as I love it, is something like it's passion, it's like intimacy, and you know, you love it, but the business side is so different, and like navigating the space can almost take it all apart. So like, and dealing with musicians too, because just like the energy and keeping that up and rehearsing, getting the next show, getting people together, making sure that everything's kind of laid out, and is the sound man okay? It's like I always started feeling like in the business of it, it's like if I'm performing, I'm like the last person to you know, to be paid and deal with a lot of this stuff, but it's still so much fun. So I just need like a you know, more of a, you know, I think with this stage, I feel like it can be a lot more just at ease and less of the stress. But if it wasn't for a lot of those stages and experiences, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite lines is from Nature Boy, the song. You know, it ends with the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
Bring people together.
Yeah, man. And music is one of those things that, because it's still a soundtrack. I still love it.
Music is love.
Yeah.
I was a hippie in those days. Everybody wanted to spread love and then I didn't go for one. I went to hate. Why go there? You know, keep the love going.
Yep. Yeah.
Got to start with that. And I look forward to future work that you do.
Definitely.
Beautiful studio and a project.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, we don't definitely, I know, because you're in we didn't even really touch on a lot of the film stuff, but you're into that too. So
I'm slinking in my chair. I told you I would do that.
I got you. Hey. Well, I got to hit you with the last Detroit is Different questions I ask everybody. Then we wrap.
Go ahead.
First one. Your very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
Whoa, it's a 1955 Ford Fairlane.
Okay, Ford. I don't even know what a Ford Fairlane is.
It was black and white. My mother bought it.
Okay.
And I couldn't drive it. I didn't have a license yet.
Okay.
But I was waiting till I got old enough.
Okay. Where, okay, you had to wait for it. Where was the first place you went when you got it?
Well, my mother passed away, unfortunately, and then my dad had to sell the car, so I lost the car. But years later, he sort of promised me I can get any car I want. So
okay.
I wasn't happy with my dad at the time, so
Yeah,
I didn't want to ask for too much. So I said, I'll take a Fiat. I don't care. So I got myself a little Fiat 600, which is about this big. You know,
hilarious.
And I love that car.
Where's the first place you went with that?
Well, I lived on Cass and Canfield at the time, and
Okay.
where did I go with it? This is another long story, but I'll keep it short. I ended up going up north to get a job when I was 21.
Wow.
In
When you say up north, across the
Charlevoix.
Ooh.
Yeah, I had a job up there. The guy called me and said, "I need somebody. I fired my band. I need a new band." So I took my car up there. Yeah, car just made it. I mean, it sort of like sputtered out just before town, and I get to town, and I meet the guy, and Mark, his horn player, and he takes me to the club and shows me the owner. He says, "Hey, Mr. So-and-so, here's my new rhythm section." And the owner says to him, "What do you mean, Mark? I kept the rhythm section. You're fired."
Wow. Wow.
So there's three of us getting ready to go way up north and no job at all.
Wow.
And I was
I can
totally
only
poor.
see,
I mean,
you see, it was like you jumped right into being a musician.
my car broke. I had no money. It was like, oh God,
that's
Yeah.
man, that's a tough one. But boy, if it ever is a musician story, it's that.
That's my first car.
Was that during the winter?
No, that was in summer.
Okay,
summer resort job. Yeah.
Okay, at least that. But still, boy, oh boy.
Yeah, it was exciting and very memorable. Yes.
Okay, you got that right.
Yeah.
You got that right. Yeah. All right. So next question. This is gonna be a tough one for you. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
The DJ. I'm so old. I don't know. I wouldn't know anything that anybody young would know. But
I mean, you're the DJ. It's your pick.
if I had to play 2 songs,
Yep.
I'd play something by Donny Hathaway.
I love Donny Hathaway.
Yeah.
I love Donny Hathaway. He has 2 live albums, but the definitely the one with He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, and the longer version of The Ghetto.
Yeah, that's fun.
Even though I love
Yeah,
I love the other version too. But
We did it at Bert's a lot. Yeah, that was
yeah,
fun.
man.
No, I liked his more like For All We Know. Just a lot.
man.
He was tremendous. All this stuff anyway. And some by him, and maybe his Robeson song. I don't know, but
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't be anything contemporary. But God,
Okay.
there's so many
Hey.
choices. I mean, I can't even. That just came to mind like that because we talked about Robeson.
Okay.
But
All right. When Paul Robeson, the songs I know are from musicals, so I don't even know which one of those songs I would pick.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I know he had a lot. Well, they're not dance tunes necessarily. So,
Hey.
so I'd do Earth, Wind, and Fire or someone like
yeah.
some dance tune. Sly and the Family.
Okay.
That'd be my choice for dancing. That's what we
Okay.
did with our dance band for decades.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of dance music.
Okay. Well, rest in peace, Sly Stone. Rest in peace, Sly
yeah.
Stone. He was here much longer than we thought.
Yeah.
Hard life, but very creative. And then we close with this. If you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter, who would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. Probably Coleman Young, I guess.
He is definitely the most named one. For you, why?
Well, because he was a lefty, because he was progressive. He was pro-union. He was a workers, and he knew about racism. He was in another organization that I can't think of before he became mayor. It was a political group that he was head of. And so his politics and his, I mean, he had a lot of questions in his history that people challenged, but the fact that he was our first black mayor and I guess because I knew him personally and he was very friendly to me, I guess I have to
There we
talk
go.
on that level.
Yeah.
He respected me, and so I love the guy. I don't know. It's just
Yes. He, as I say, definitely the most named one when it comes to music. I think I like sometimes the moxie attitude he'd have. Not as much of an enthusiast of jazz as we'd say John Conyers per se.
No.
But
That don't matter.
certainly. One heck of a figure. And then also we gotta close with this because it's so many stories I know you have with John Conyers. I only got a couple, but some of my John Conyers stories kind of impact you. So now I gotta naturally say, what John Conyers story stands out because just the mix of him and jazz music and all of that?
Well, the time I went to his office in Washington, and and for the first and only time, and sat there with him, and we had one-on-one. It was amazing. And in the corner there was an upright bass, and I said, "Do you play that?" He said, "No, I used to." He used to play bass.
I never knew that.
Yeah, an upright bass.
I never
on
knew
a stand in his office in Washington.
Wow.
And we were joking around. I says, "Oh man, you got to play it for me,"
Uh-huh.
So he never plays. He said, "No, I never play anymore." And so I got him to play, and he played some notes for me.
Wow.
Bass,
Okay.
upright bass.
Okay.
Yeah. But Conyers, there's many stories with him because he was. I was active in a lot of different political groups, and he was everywhere. He was on the people's side everywhere. One of the greatest guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just, like I say, one of my Conyers stories connects to your Conyers story. And it was, I don't even remember what exactly was going on. I want to say it was definitely anti-Iraqi war. I'm just guessing it's something like that. And leading up to that, John Conyers had a relationship with, rest in peace, Chokwe Lumumba as well. And that day, Chokwe was, this was when he was running for city council in Jackson, Mississippi. And they said, hey, you can record Conyers giving an endorsement of me. And John Conyers, if you knew his personality, just the way he walked in rooms, met people, talked to people and everything, and they were like, his aide said, okay, you can't do that here because this is a federal office, because this was the downtown office. So then he's like, okay, we'll just go over to these other two union rallies and then we can get something done over there. So I end up being like a John Conyers chauffeur for a while. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm driving around. And I see you at like the first rally. And I know you've been in this situation before. I'm like, I'm driving around with like the statesman of Congress. What is going on here? And you were like, oh, you don't worry about it. He'll be cool. So it's so weird because, yeah, like he was picking the songs we was playing and everything. And shout out to my guy, Nick Speed, because even later that day, he still wanted me to go like, like when they say politicians have a day full of stuff, like, I'm with John Conyers probably from like 2:30 to like 7:30. We record this thing like around 6, and Monica's like, yeah, he gonna just go in and go. And I'm like, yo, man, I gotta go to Canada to this. Like I'm on this rap station, and he was like, I'll be on that rap station with you, young man. And I was like, man, this is ridiculous. So I walk into the station, and Nick Speed's there. Shout out to my guy Speed. And then I'm like, yo, I'm not going to not call him. He my congressman. I was with him all day. And then Monica's like, he's sleeping, but I'm about to wake him up. And then he was like, yeah, I'm about to be on there. So we're talking about like, it's in the archives of like Windsor's hip hop station, like kind of connected to the university, where he tells a story of how he made jazz America's first art form. And I was like, we need to do that with hip hop. And then he just kind of like lays out the steps and everything, similar to like the way he would talk about creating Martin Luther King Day as a holiday. So, and you, as I keep going through it, because you were the only other person I remember that wasn't like on his staff that would sometimes just pull up with him and it'd be like, yeah, that's sometimes how, Conyers is.
Yeah, he passed that bill to make jazz a national treasure.
Yep, which added more an endowment to like the studies departments and a lot of other access. But as you say, definitely more jazz stages needed, and I agree. We need to kind of just look at it as music itself, not just stuck in one genre, but definitely.
So if they don't name it Coleman, they can name their Woodward Conyers.
Definitely.
Yeah. John Conyers.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.